Happy Tuesday, Cupsters! Thank you for joining me today in Read Aloud. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you a story about a time when I was a little kid just like you. And I was at the grocery store with my dad, and I went over to the candy machine, and I put a quarter in the candy machine. I went like this, and then I twisted it, and then out popped a big ball of candy. And when I got it, it was this big ball, and it was red and purple, and it had all these swirls on it, and it looked so delicious. So I went back by my dad, and he was still shopping, and I popped the candy in my mouth. I didn't know what it was, but I tried it anyways. I popped it in my mouth, and it tasted like strawberries and cherries and grapes. It was so delicious, but it was really hard. So I was just kind of like tasting it, and then I went like this. I took a big bite of the candy. And as soon as I did that, my dad looked at me and he said, "No!" I said, "What? What's wrong, Dad?" He said, that was a jawbreaker." And I didn't know what a jawbreaker was. I was like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" He was like, "A jawbreaker is a really hard candy that you can't bite because it will break your jaw. This is the part of your mouth that's your jaw. Touch your jaw right here. Touch your jaw." So when he told me that, I was like, well, good thing my jaw didn't break when I took a bite of that. And so I just had to keep it in my mouth until it went away. So nothing would happen. I didn't want it to break my jaw. Today we're going to read a story about a character named Ganesha. Say Ganesha. And Ganesha finds a jawbreaker. And something happens when Ganesha takes a bite of that jawbreaker. We're going to read this book today to find out the problem of the story and how the characters try to solve it. So today when we read, your job is to think about the problem. Put your hands like this and say problem. Your turn. Problem. Your turn. A problem is something that a character wants but cannot have. Problem. Your turn. Good. Then we're going to think about how the characters try to solve that problem or try to fix it. And last, we're going to think about the solution. Put your hands up like this. Solution. Your turn. Solution. Your turn. Good. Today when we read, we're going to think about the problem and the solution so that we can understand what happens in the story better. And I want to know, what is going to happen when Ganesha has a jawbreaker, just like I did? Let's see. This book is titled Ganesha's Sweet Tooth. It's written by Sanjay Patel and Emily Haynes. And I almost forgot to tell you, the reason that we're reading this book is because it takes place in India. Say India. India is a country inside Asia. So we just learned about Asia yesterday, and now we're going to read a story all about a character from that continent. Let's get started, Kipsters. Ganesha is a Hindu god. He's very important and powerful, and a tad chubby. But when he was a kid, he was just like any other kid. Except that he had an elephant's head and cruised around on a magical mouse collecting fruit, rice, sweets, and other gifts from the temples in his neighborhood. So this is Ganesha. Say, "Hey, Ganesha." And that's Mr. Mouse. Say, "Hey, Mr. Mouse." And Ganesha and Mr. Mouse are going around and they're collecting treats and rice and goodies from the temples. And a temple is a building of worship, kind of like a church. Ganesha loved to eat sweets and candy, especially the traditional Indian dessert, laddu. Say, laddu. His best friend, Mr. Mouse, could eat only one at a time, which was okay by Ganesha. He didn't want to share all of his laddus. "Squeak," said Mr. Mouse. I just love this book. It has the most beautiful colors and illustrations. One day, while Ganesha and Mr. Mouse were out looking for sweets, they discovered a new kind of laddu. The super jumbo jawbreaker. Oh, man. Remember, we're thinking about the problem today. Ganesha snatched up the shiny treat and was about to eat it right there on the spot. Wait! Squeaked Mr. Mouse. Don't eat it! It's a jawbreaker! It'll break your tusk. A tusk is a very long, large tooth that sticks out, and sometimes animals and elephants use it for digging or as a weapon. And this right here, that part is Ganesha's tusk. Say tusk. Good. So Mr. Mouse said that if Ganesha eats this jawbreaker, it's gonna break his tusk. But I'm a god, said Ganesha. I'm invincible. Ganesha popped the laddu in his mouth. He bit down, and what do you think is going to happen when Ganesha bites down? Let's find out. Snap! Squeak! Oh no! Mr. Mouse yelled. What happened to Ganesha's tusk? Exactly! Ganesha's tusk broke from that jawbreaker because it's so hard. How will I ever put my tusk back on? Ganesha wailed. Ganesha was very clever and tried all sorts of ideas. What if I tie it on with string? What if I stick it on with glue? Maybe I could just hold it on with my hand. But nothing worked. Kipsters, what is Ganesha's problem? There's a clue. You got it. Ganesha's problem is that Ganesha broke his tusk, when he ate that jawbreaker. So I'm going to put that right here. The problem is that when he bit a jawbreaker, he broke his tusk. Oh no. I look lopsided, he said. Everyone will laugh at me. No, they won't, said Mr. Mouse. Everyone loses their teeth. And besides, you already have an elephant's head, and your friends still love you. Kipsters, what does Mr. Mouse do to try to solve Ganesha's problem? Yeah, he just tries to tell him, like, buddy, it's okay. Your friends are still going to love you even if your tusk is broken. What does Ganesha do to try to solve his problem? Yep. You got it. Ganesha tries to tie it on with string and stick it on with glue and just holds that tusk on to see if it will stay. So how the characters try to solve the problem is by using all these tools like string and glue to try to hold that tusk in place. But it didn't work, right? Okay, so now we have to see how they really solve the problem of Ganesha's tusk being broken. So Ganesha wasn't convinced. He thought he looked awful. He took all his anger and frustration and hurled his tusk at the moon. But the tusk didn't hit the moon. It sailed over a bush and hit the head of an old man who was walking by. Look, the tusk went zoop. Is this your tusk? The old man asked. I'm sorry, said Ganesha. I didn't mean to hit you. I was aiming for the moon. What's your name? I'm Ganesha, and this is Mr. Mouse. You're Ganesha? The old man exclaimed. I've been looking for you. I'm Vyasa, the poet, and I need a special scribe for a poem. A scribe is a person who writes something down that somebody else says. It's so long that no man could ever write the whole thing. All the pens in the world would break before it was done. So Ganesha meets Vyasa, this poet, and he wants Ganesha to write down his special poem. I'm not a man, said Ganesha, and I love stories, but I don't have anything to write with. What about your tusk? Vyasa asked. That's just a big tooth, Ganesha said. It's a very special tooth, Vyasa explained, handing Ganesha a piece of paper. Give it a try. Wait a second. Vyasa says that Ganesha can use his tooth to write? Look at this. Ganesha started drawing all these beautiful pictures with his tusk. It was magic. Ganesha took the paper and pressed down with the tip of his tusk. It made a mark. Ganesha was so excited that he drew a flower and a tree and a picture of Mr. Mouse, along with a few of his other favorite things. Kipsters, what did Ganesha learn about his tusk? Yeah, that's right. He learned that it was magical and he could use it to draw and write. I love my tusk, said Ganesha. I'd be happy to help you. What is the story about? The beginning of things, said Vyasa. It's rather hard to sum it up. It's called the Mahabharata. Interesting. Excuse me, said Mr. Mouse, jumping on the end of Ganesha's trunk. I don't mean to interrupt, but what exactly are the terms of this agreement? It is a very long poem, after all. Can you tell the whole story in one go, Vyasa? No stopping? As long as Ganesha understands the meaning of everything I say. Can I eat sweets while I write? Said Ganesha. As long as you don't stop writing, said Vyasa. Ganesha and Mr. Mouse agreed. Let's begin. As Vyasa spoke, Ganesha put his tusk and paper to the paper and began writing. Soon he forgot all about the super jumbo jawbreaker Laddu and how funny he looked. He even forgot about the sweets he wanted to eat. Long ago, said Vyasa, there lived a very brave king of Hastinapur. One day, when he was out hunting, he happened upon a beautiful woman sitting on the banks of the Ganga River. How did Ganesha's problem get solved, Kipsters? He was so upset about his tusk being broken. Remember, he tried to tie it on with string and glue it on. How did he solve his problem? That's right. Ganesha learned that his tusk was magical and could write and draw. Did he? And then remember what he said after he learned that? He said, do you remember? He said, I love my tusk. So his problem was starting to get solved and fixed because he didn't feel so upset about his tusk being broken anymore. Then Vyasa came and asked him to use his magical tusk to write down a special poem. So 2 ways his problem was solved. We're almost done, Kipsters. Here is the poem and the pictures that Vyasa made with his trunk, or that Ganesha made. Wow. Telling a very important story. 100,000 verses later, Ganesha put down his tusk. The Mahabharata, the great epic of Hindu literature, was complete. Ganesha peeked around a stack of paper and saw that Mr. Mouse had been eating his way through the laddus as they worked. The poem had taken a very long time. Look at all those papers are what Ganesha wrote. He wrote so much. But Ganesha was happy to see there was still a few left for him and his friends. Kipsters, how does Ganesha feel in the end of the story? That's right. Ganesha feels happy that he was able to help Vyasa and that there are some laddus left for him and his friends and Mr. Mouse. You did an awesome job thinking about the problem. how the characters try to solve it, and thinking about the, how does it go again? Like this there. Solution. Everybody say solution. Your turn. Good job. The solution is how the problem gets fixed. Tomorrow, we're going to read Ganesha's Sweet Tooth one more time, and we're going to think a lot about the illustrations. They're so, so beautiful. I can't wait to look more closely at them with you. See you tomorrow, Cupsters.